more time though.
I know what you mean. I am going to try and quickly rattle through some stuff so that you can have access to documents, right? Today's Friday, it's Document Friday. And that means you'll have to put away all your phones and all your pens and all your pencils and all your notebooks. Document Friday.
You're done. We get to look at documents.
And of course, today we're covering stuff that would be useful if you choose that Blue Book essay on was Reagan a good president or not, because this is all Reagan. Or this is also America in the world. This isn't America. This is Central America. Anything that has to do with foreign countries would be fodder for a potential essay on your fourth paper. Right? So this is all part of the Cold War. So there's the map that I'm looking for. The reason I had to put up is because I was looking for this map. I'm sorry. This is the map we're paying attention to right now. That is right there. Right there. Right there. Right there. Right there. This is my shooting hand. God. Anywho, this country right there, that's Israel. Does anyone remember how Israel was created? Let me rephrase that. By what entity? What entity created Israel? That's right, the United Nations. Carved Israel, by the way, if you smell like old yogurt in here, I can't figure it out. There's old yogurt. I mean, it's probably in a tile. Whoever did that. Anyway, but anyway, there's old yogurt. No, it's been in here all day. Although, oh yeah. Today, by the way, they're catering in Acapulco for teachers for lunch.
Thanks for telling us that.
I was in here and then suddenly I started floating. I was in the air floating all the way to the teacher's lounge. And then the principal caught me and said, "Why aren't you in your room?" There were students in here, but I floated. I'm like, no.
Mr. Lindbergh did that too.
Oh yeah, Lindy.
Except he didn't come
Lindy
back.
has a reputation.
He came back.
He's known as the trash man.
I think like
Yeah, dump the food in the trash. Lindy's mouth. He's like Homer. Okay, anyway. Israel was created by United Nations, angering her neighbors, Israel's neighbors. And we already talked about how Egypt fought a war and lost, but worked out a peace treaty, the Camp David Accords. Now this is the story of Lebanon. Lebanon's to the north. Israel's down here. Israel, during those wars that we really very quickly skipped over, conquered some land. You learned about Israel conquered land from Egypt, but that was not the only chunk of land that they conquered. They also took a chunk of land from a group called the Palestinians. They took their land. Palestine is not a country. And so the Palestinian people, if they were going to resist in an organized way, would have to create a militia. You can't have an army. You're not a nation. So they created a resistance group called the PLO. Is that up here? It isn't. PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization. Okay. PLO. What they want? Yeah, to win their own land back. Okay, they can't exactly hide in the land that Israel captured, though, right? You get caught. So they hid in Lebanon. The PLO hid in Lebanon. Now, if you're Israel, what might you do? Exactly, invade Lebanon. Synthesis now. Come on, synthesis.
We went into Laos and the one that starts with the C.
Thank you. Okay, when the North Vietnamese snuck into South Vietnam through Cambodia and Laos, the United States attacked Cambodia and Laos. Another one. Thank you. Very good. That was not even the one I was expecting, right? Al-Qaeda hid in Pakistan, so the U.S. attacked Pakistan. Yes, I meant Pakistan because that's where Osama bin Laden was taken out. Also invaded Afghanistan. Okay, you get the idea. All right, very good. So Israel invaded Lebanon. Not to attack Lebanon, but to attack the PLO that was hiding in Lebanon. But Lebanon said, hey, what are you doing? You've attacked us. Oh no, we're not attacking you. Yes, you are. Right? It's like if you had a wood tick on your nose and I said, hold still, and I punched it really hard. I just broke your nose. And I would say, no, I killed the wood tick. Yeah, but my nose. Yeah, good question. So to the rescue comes the U.S. To the rescue comes the U.S. Look, you see this shaded area? That was a buffer zone. American soldiers, along with soldiers from other countries, part of a UN mission. Here it is, UNIFIL. No idea what that stands for. Who cares? Would go between. It's like when you and your brother are fighting, so your mom stands between you. Now, if you want to hit your brother, you're going to punch your mom in the stomach. You don't want to punch your mom in the stomach, especially Sunday's Mother's Day. Have you thought of something for mother?
Yes.
Okay. I bought Twins tickets. The next day they went on sale for $5. So instead of buying 4 tickets for $20, I paid $100.
Yay.
No, not yay.
Yay.
Why do you keep saying yay when it's not yay?
Yay for whoever.
Do you understand though that this is risky? This is risky, right? You're putting yourself between hostile entities.
Because Sunday is not American. So they're gonna still attack. Because you made the Mother's Day analogy.
Oh, God. Why am I filled with people smarter than me? Why? It's very frustrating.
You're filled with people.
Yeah.
Hey, what ended up happening, this is a terrible thing. What ended up happening was one of the radical Islamic fundamentalists who would later join a group called Al-Qaeda. Actually, he died, so he couldn't have. But anyway, the entity that he was part of, which would change its name to Al-Qaeda, got in a Jeep filled with explosives, drove it right into the American camp, exploded, and killed something like 200 Marines. The next day, all the Americans were withdrawn. Like, screw that. Right? This isn't working. But I've told you here that this was our second brush by with this other entity that we did not understand. Because that guy did not get in that Jeep and kill Americans because communism. Right? But that's our modus operandi. The only thing we understand is, are you a commie or aren't you? And this guy that got in the Jeep and killed over 200 Americans was not even part of that discussion. He's something else entirely. And we did not understand. And we would not understand until after 9/11. We just did not get the clues. Now, I said the second experience. Well, what was the first one?
The Iron Hostage things.
Iron hostage. Awesome. I thought you meant Iran hostage. But you're exactly right. The Iran hostage thing, right, was our first brush by with this entirely different way of thinking about how the world should be. That's the point I'm trying to get across here as far as during the Cold War, our view of the way the world should be was a world of nations that are capitalist. The Soviets' version of the way the world should be would be nations that are communist. But then you had this group. And their view of the way the world should be would be something like this. A world dominated by Islam where there are no nations. Nations? No. Caliphites. Religious dominated areas, right? That's a totally different way of organizing the world. And I believe that is exactly what's going on today. That we have a view of the way the world should be. And there's other versions of the way the world should be. And that's what a world war is. A world war is a conflict of isms. Our view is capitalism, democracyism. Work with it. These people say, no, radical Islamic fundamentalism. Okay? Kind of a negative experience. Right? You might use that as an evidence that maybe we shouldn't. Okay? Now let's pay attention to what was going on in Central America. This story, this is very, very current stuff right now. Anyone know what the crap's going on in Nicaragua? Go ahead.
Isn't it a kind of revolution?
Yeah, definitely, right? There's a guy that's been in power in Nicaragua, and he kind of likes it. So there was an election. He lost, but said, nah, they cheated. So I'm not stepping down. And the U.S. has already recognized the other guy as the winner, but this guy's not stepping down. And the military, for now, is sticking with him. And so it's a nasty situation going on right now. Okay, that's today. Let's go back to the 1980s. So that's these three things right here. So we're paying attention to these three bullets. The first one is Grenada. Any of you been to Grenada? Any of you been close to Grenada? You've been in the Caribbean? You've been close to Grenada, okay? Grenada is a beautiful tropical island, and there was a communist revolution there, right? Right next to Cuba. Cuba's communist. So here we go. Here's the domino theory that's spreading to Grenada. Yes, Grenada. Grenada, people. What's next? Some other teeny little dot of an island? Grenada. Now, on the island of Grenada, there were some college students, American college students. When the revolution occurred, in the name of protecting those college students, the United States military invaded and overthrew the mighty government of, wait for it, Grenada. Grenada. All right. America making the world a better place. The beaches were whiter that day. The water was waterier. Thanks, America. And then these two. There's Nicaragua, and then right next to it is El Salvador. The proper pronunciation of El Salvador is, as you say it, get quicker with your syllables and louder. It is not El Salvador. What are you talking about? It is El Salvador. El Salvador. Do you understand? You're being tested.
Okay, what's the difference between chicken and bacon?
Don't have to get too critically detailed here, but in both cases, there was either a communist government that the U.S. was trying to overthrow, or a not communist government that the Soviets were trying to overthrow that we were trying to prevent. Right? You'll notice that many of these conflicts, Soviet and American soldiers never fight each other. Think of the Cold War as a chessboard. We're a king, and the Soviets were the king. The kings cannot kill each other. Any of you play chess? Why can't the kings kill each other? What? Yeah, you can't put yourself in check. As soon as you move close enough for the kill, you've just put yourself in check, and you can't do that. Kings cannot attack each other in chess, but the king can attack everyone else. And the king's pawns can attack their pawns, and the king's pawns can attack their king, and their king can attack our pawns, and their pawns can attack our king. That's a useful metaphor, right? The United States never fought the Soviets, but they fought the North Vietnamese, pawn. They fought the North Koreans, pawn. The Americans helped the El Salvador and Nicaragua, either rebels or government. Doesn't really matter if you know which was which, who cares? But you see the metaphor. During the Cold War, we armed people either trying to prevent a communist revolution or we were trying to attempt to overthrow a communist established government. Remember, outside of the accepted Soviet sphere of influence, which we were simply containing. We're not going to try and change what's inside of the area of containment. They got it. But everywhere else, we are going to directly involve ourselves either by protecting a government that the Soviets are trying to overthrow, or we're going to try and overthrow one of their governments. There's a bit on this slide, sorry. In these three cases, and in this one right here, all of them, there was a strategy, and it was an economic strategy. It's kind of brilliant, actually, in a way. We're just going to outspend them. We're going to outspend the Soviet Union. We're going to build more missiles. They'll have to build more missiles. Then we'll build more missiles. They'll have to build more missiles. And they'll run out of money before we do. They'll go broke before we do. That next bullet was an idea that Reagan had, and I would argue Trump has sort of added the next chapter with an idea that he's called Space Force. So we'll talk about that in a second. Let's put lasers in space so that if the Soviets launch their missiles, we can shoot them right out of the sky from space. This isn't missiles in space. This is laser cats in space. Have I not showed you the laser cats video? Oh my God, if there's time, I will. In a world after a nuclear war, they armed cats with lasers that were shot out of their mouths. Some people used it for good, others for evil. Who will win in a world of laser cats? Anyway, we're going to put lasers in space to shoot up the Soviets. Well, of course, if you're the Soviets, that's concerning. Your whole missile system is, if this works, suddenly useless, right? It's as if you were a prosecuting attorney and you have all these pictures to prove that he did it, and the jury was blind, right? And so you're like, damn it, right? What good are your pictures? What good are your missiles if the U.S. can simply shoot them out of the sky? Okay. The last note here that is on this slide is something happened in Korea that was sort of interesting and sort of revealing. Okay. In 1983, a Korean jet got lost and flew over Soviet airspace. Okay, so let's take a look here. Here's South Korea. It got lost. It flew over Soviet airspace, and the Soviets shot it down. Killed everyone on board. It was a jetliner, right? No, there weren't missiles on it. It was a passenger jet. And the U.S. came after the Soviets. How could you shoot down that plane? So what if it was over your airspace? What's it going to do? Crash into a building? Okay. Now, I want you to note that because the American response gained the attention of some people in the Middle East. Like, oh, look at that. Look where that is. Okay, it's pretty interesting. That's why it says that. Questions? Let's rock. The Soviets knew they were in trouble. Let's go back to this page. Good God, we have to fight the Americans in Grenada. Where's Grenada? We have to fight them in El Salvador. Where's that? Where's Nicaragua? My God, in space, in Korea, in Vietnam. We have to prevent them from breaching the buffer states that we've created. We have to maintain a military presence in Europe, in the Middle East. How do we keep up? And so the Soviet Union went through a series of changes to compete with the Americans. So you and I are looking at a map, and there's Russia, of course, and all the red things plus Russia equals Soviet Union. Follow me? Okay. These are all, I suppose you could call them states. Right? The United States of Soviet Union. Right? They call them republics. United Soviet Socialist Republics. Okay? These are all Soviet. And then in yellow represents countries in Eastern Europe that the Soviet soldiers occupied since World War II. Okay? Okay? So you're seeing sort of the Soviet area of influence, the Soviet sphere of influence. There it is. And the Soviets are going to try and keep up with the Americans under a guy by the name of Mikhail Gorbachev, who I met. I met this guy.
Pretty cool, dude.
He actually was more popular in the United States than in the Soviet Union.
That's very popular.
Well, in a way, he did, right? And it is fascinating. Americans are more fascinated with the baby that whoever just had, the Duke of something in Europe, England. Harry. They just had Archie.
Yeah.
We're more interested than the British are. The Queen of England is more popular here than in England. Fascinating stuff. Anyway, he tried to save the Soviet Union because of all this stuff, right? It's bankrupting their economy. They're having to spend way too much money on building missiles and soldiers and all this. And so he's going to try and save the Soviet economy. And he comes up with two ideas. Perestroika and glasnost. These are Russian terms. One means free economy and one means free speech. I can never remember which one is which. I don't know. One of them means free economy and one of them means free speech. You're right. I'm, changing things up. It's fresh today. It's fresh. I got up extra early this morning, and after I did my 1,000 pull-ups, I thought, the kids in CIS, they deserve a little more today. They deserve a little more. I'm going to give them that more because sandwich. So I would say it's up to you to figure out which one's which.
The perestroika, I think, is the free economy.
Okay, let's go with that. Perestroika means a loosening of the economy. In other words, hey, everyone out there under our control, we will no longer tell you what to make. Right? Communism means they own everything, which means that the government says what to make. Did you know that, this is a true story, did you know that during World War II, there was a toothbrush shortage in the Soviet Union? Toothbrush. Well, that's true, but they were so massively focused on building tanks that they stopped making toothbrushes. One of the perils of communism is when you give all authority to make everything to one thing, they forget about toothbrushes, as an example. Okay, anyway, so go ahead and make what you want and charge what you want. Make what you want and charge what you want. You know what most people call that? Capitalism. So in an effort to save communist Soviet Union, the Soviet Union switched to capitalism.
Sure.
Okay? Chapter 2, glasnost, which must mean free speech. So go ahead and say what you want.
Wait a minute.
Which is okay, right? I mean, sort of like our First Amendment, free speech. So now you can make yourself what you want and say what you want. So you might argue, well, then what were we fighting them about? Right? When they did this, didn't we high-five them and say, all right, good job. It's over. And if you think that, you don't get it. Just because two governments have similar economic systems doesn't mean they're friends. I mean, Britain was a monarchy forever, and so was France. And I think they fought a few wars against each other. Poor France. What? Just a few. Okay. So you get the idea. It's about more than having a common economic system or having a common political system. It's about dominance. Who's the big man on the mountain? Who's number one? Okay. So these are an effort to sort of shore up the Soviet economy. However, I'm going to tell you it ended the Soviet Union. Because as soon as these yellow countries enjoyed freedom of speech, they said, here's some speech, get out! How do you like that speech? Leave our country. Stop militarily occupying our country. And here's the most shocking thing of all, the Soviets honored the request. Okay, we'll leave. So they left. But wait, it doesn't end there. These states in red also have free speech. And they said, we secede. How do you like that speech? As a matter of fact, here's one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. One of the first republics to secede was Russia. Like, it's like when your boss says you're fired, you say, I quit. And I said it first, so. By the way, if you're thinking about it, get fired. Firing is better than quitting, because when you get fired, you get a severance package. If you quit, see you later. But when you get fired, they give you cash. Unless you like did something bad.
Isn't there like
Yeah, if they caught me selling drugs again, okay, there's no severance package. Or did you? That's what makes it fun. Okay, and once again, the Russians honored it. So that's the end of the Soviet Union. There's no more Soviet Union. So it was just like that. And I remember I was right there. I was in Berlin on the last day that Russian soldiers left Berlin. It's crazy. Yeah.
Did you know it was happening?
Yeah, this was well on the way. This was on the final days of Russian military presence in Germany. Yep. Okay. So I have here the Soviet withdrawal from the yellow and the Russian withdrawal from the red. Russian soldiers occupied the red. Soviet soldiers occupied the yellow.
Does that mean there were Russians in Ukraine was in Romania?
Potentially. You can see how later on, and we're going to get to this soon. I mean, this class is almost over. Later on, Russia will reconquer that little thing, that little peninsula. And you can see why. The leader of Russia looks at this as a catastrophe. Why did we do this? We need to retake what was once ours. We need to reestablish the greatness of Russia and reinvade our enemies.
Sounds like somebody else's
You're right. The Soviets also withdrew from Afghanistan. Afghanistan is to the Soviet Union what Vietnam was to us, right? A small backward country that beat us. Vietnam beat us. Afghanistan beat the Soviets. Two other things to note here. One is the INF Treaty. The INF Treaty was a treaty between the Soviet Union and the United States that reduced the number of nuclear missiles. Intermediate nuclear force treaty. It eliminated missiles that went pretty far. Intercontinental missiles, yay! Launch from Russia, hit the US, or launch from the US, hit Russia. They go really far. Short-range missiles travel a few hundred miles. These are the ones in between. They travel further than the short ones, but longer than the long ones.
What?
Further than the short ones,
Shorter than the long.
shorter than the long.
We got rid of those.
And then there was the second treaty called START 1, which implies to you that there was a START 2. Strategic Arms Reductions Treaty. Strategic Arms Reductions Treaty. It's another treaty reducing the number of nukes.
Start one.
Strategic Arms Reductions Treaty.
What does that stand for? I know.
Strategic Arms.
INF is.
Oh, intermediate nuclear force. I don't think I'd ever tested it. The point here is that in an effort to save the Soviet Union, we are granting economic freedoms, we're granting political freedoms, we are withdrawing soldiers, that's an effort to save money, and we're reducing our nuclear stockpile. This is all in an effort to save the Soviet Union, and it ends the Soviet Union.
Wait, so the Soviet Union did all this, or?
Soviet Union did all this, yep, which led to the end of the Soviet Union. He's the last leader of the Soviet Union. The next person would become the new leader of Russia. As a matter of fact, the first elected leader in Russian history, because they always had czars before that. We are now starting to see the effects of this. This is what I would call the post-Cold War world. The world after the Cold War was over. I'm almost done, I promise. One is a rise in tensions between ethnic groups. When this is one big globby thing, they're all Soviet. But suddenly, this is Ukraine and this is Russia. The Ukrainians and Russians don't get along. when we're all on the same team, we like each other. But now that we're on different teams, you know who were the biggest Brett Favre fans for a while? Packer fans. Oh, they loved him. Then they hated him. What changed? Did he get a haircut? Nope. He had a different colored shirt on. That's why they hated him. Because of the color of his shirt. You get the idea. Right, same thing. Okay, any questions? That's it. So, today being Friday.
The ethnic tensions happen to worsen at least the highlighters laugh.
Definitely. Clear everything, put your phones away, put your pencils away, put everything away. Okay. Do not walk up to me and give this to me. I will walk to you. Just leave it. I don't know. I'll figure that out. Okay. I may have told you last week that it's a 4-paragraph essay. It is not. It's a 2-paragraph essay. I don't need an intro and I don't need a conclusion. I need paragraph 1 to be where you're presenting let's just say you're doing Reagan and you think Reagan was a great president. Then your first paragraph is presenting arguments why some people think he wasn't, which you will document, prove, historically prove that somewhat has some validity, and then disprove. And then paragraph number 2 is why he was a good president. That's it. I don't need a thesis, no hook, no roadmap, no context. Do I require synthesis?
And we have one else.
I do require synthesis.
You do?
I'll allow the water. No. Almost. You may have the water bottle. Fix it. You don't need quote. I don't need a quote. I just need some sort of a comparison similar to what happened in either Vietnam or the goodness or badness of Ronald Reagan.
Honestly, thought I was gonna write my name on it.
I will allow the Kit Kat wrapper. Let's go!
That'd be good.
Why are they so weird?
They're all like in front of the camera.
And then you can like pause it while you do it.
They're all
It's not like he watches the video.
That one's been so rolling.
You're gonna have to live with that. I am fine if you are partnering up and sort of attacking these and kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. I just don't want you to take any pictures of it. Don't do that. Write on it. Don't do that. Frankly, me even giving these to you violates what I said I was going to do, but I'm a softie.
We give them to us on like the first day.
I told you I wasn't even going to give these to you at all until the day of,
Yeah,
but I feel bad.
okay.
You get that.
This is why we have a week to appreciate teachers.
I'll do that.
Read it out loud. Read it out.
Eisenhower.
At any point now, you can raise your hand if you're done.
Like
Margaret Thatcher,
awful other
MA,
dominance.
former Prime Minister of Britain, stated in a June 11th,
History
2004
provided
eulogy for President Reagan.
partially corrected.
We have lost a great president, a great American, and a great man. We have lost a dear friend.
The fact was.
In his lifetime, Ronald Reagan was such a cheerful and invigorating presence that it's easy to forget what daunting historic task he set for himself. He sought to mend America's wounded spirit, to restore the strength of the free world, and free the slaves of communism. His policies had a freshness and optimism that won converts from every class and every nation, and ultimately.
The fact was that this is not, as critics later claimed, a civil war, but a thorough Invasion.
His policies had a freshness and optimism that won converts from every class and every nation, and ultimately, from the very
Why?
heart of the evil empire. He won the Cold War not only without firing a shot, but also by inviting enemies out of their fortress and turning them into friends.
Are you doing the Reagan one?
Yes.
Really?
Document 2.
There's 8 documents.
I'm not gonna read them all.
Oh my gosh.
There's not 8. Yes, there is.
That's about I'm done. Okay, we're going, see?
Reagan had the best intuitive sense of priorities. Any president in the post-war period. Is this the essay where we write direct quotes from the document?
Oh, there she is.
Yes,
No.
but haven't we in the past?
Lubricants?
Oh,
Never.
this is a blue book essay. I thought you were talking about the papers direct.
Oh, yeah, papers.
These are,
Oh,
These are blue bookets. Oh,
Whoa.
you're writing these in a blue book, which is a blue,
yeah, okay, gotcha.
which is a blue?
which is not blue. You don't seem to understand where that.
Reagan had the best
How many
intuitive
figures?
sense of priorities.
You
I
were holding it up. You were holding it up.
was too.
No, you weren't.
I was just like.
No, you were. That's
too
pointing it out.
You.
Reagan had the best intuitive sense of priorities of
Reagan.
any president. Reagan.
Not Regan. Reagan.
Regan. Keep saying Regan.
Reagan. His designation of the Soviet Union as an evil empire froze the blood of international diplomacy, but agitated the moral imagination and did more to advance U.S. national objectives in the years Pentagon spent. Speaking of which, Reagan was exactly correct in knowing that the resources of the U.S. could not be matched by those of the enemy. His willingness to install theater weapons in Europe, to explore anti-missile technology, and to commit great sums to defense, effectively disarm the potential aggressor. And then who more resentfully than he made the case against big government. Could he have known that a Democratic president 7 years after the Reagan left office would serve as an echo chamber on the matter of an end to big government?
Why are you reading out loud?
He belongs on Rushmore,
We're reading it together.
Oh, okay.
Mount Rushmore.
So,
Let him out of read the next one.
I think you got it.
You sure? Okay. Peggy Noonan.
So we have to find our own historical evidence and then
Yeah.
put in just 2? Or
3.
3?
Well, 4.
Okay, so 1 for disagree.
1 for, or 1,
Well, 1 disagree and 1 refute.
yeah, and then
1
1 refute.
agree.
Depending on what you believe.
We're gonna hit 4
So
rolling
he
state.
was good. So he wasn't, he was, he was. Or he was, he wasn't, he wasn't.
Why are you reading here?
No, we're talking about
Refuting.
historical evidence.
Oh.
Really good team.
It's he was, he wasn't, he wasn't, he wasn't, he was, he was.
Because.
Paragraph 1 would be
Disagree. Refute.
viewpoint A, viewpoint B. Paragraph 2 would be viewpoint B.
Yeah. ABB or
You
BAA.
just said that.
I know I'm not supposed to.
Ronald Reagan was a great communicator. Not because he said things in an unusual way, but because he said great things. Things that were true and needed saying. Those on the left of in his day always thought Reagan had
Which
some
one are you
magical
writing
way of expressing himself. He didn't. It was what he said that was important, and now how he said it. He brought a constellation of virtues to the office of the presidency: guts, compassion, humor, and a lack of pretension. A
was that?
willingness
That
to
was
face the
Jack.
world and tell the truth. A willingness to make decisions and stand by them.
Putsy
And his leadership changed the world for the better.
and
He was a giant.
Hunter
Will this like? I don't think that this will be that hard, will it?
and
We have this.
Yeah, we have this to look
You
at.
just have to write, some people mistakenly believe he was a good president. And then
somebody had their hand in there.
footnote
Logan.
this. Blah, blah.
Yeah, so then you like look
Then
at
you
this, you find whatever you want to use.
You say, Peggy Noonan says. blah, blah, blah.
And
then
then
you
you
write-
would, you would put your,
Like this means
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, however.
But then what about your historical evidence for that?
Yeah, you write historical evidence. And then you write this means the ties to this.
And then you write however.
And then you write however. Blah, blah, blah.
So this won't be that hard.
He was a good president. And then you write, and then in the next sentence you
That
say,
was
some
Mason
people rightfully believe that he was a good president.
and
Pick a document from that says good. Like, you just
Oh,
have,
we have to find one that like supports it.
Johnson.
yeah,
So that's why we want
Yeah.
to know the document.
I don't know where mine is.
you have to know which documents support and which documents go
So-
against.
Green one, I don't know where that
Mr.
was.
Potter, if you were giving these to us on the day of, we wouldn't need historical evidence.
No, we would.
How would we like find it to match it?
you
We
would, of
just,
course,
there would
base
be,
your answer on all you've learned in class over the years.
and you would like have taught us something that matches these
I did
documents.
today.
Well,
Yeah, the
then we're
past-
not doing that.
The past couple of days he's been talking, like yesterday he just started talking about his
The
president.
assumption, of course, is this is for everybody. I don't expect you to have the depth of detail in a Blue Book essay that you would have in a paper. That I understand that, right? Because it's all in your head supposedly. So that's okay.
We lost our head.
See, they said, off with their head, and then off it went.
Document 4, George H. Nash.
Liv is violating my
PhD.
policy, but
As the
So we-
1980s
I
proceed
forget.
into history, 3 achievements of
It's all
model
right,
reading
Vicky.
loom large.
bye-bye.
In a time of dangerous drift and maladies. I don't know how to say that.
What?
You're gonna.
Whatever.
Logan,
I'm getting bored of
do you remember who said who that lady said wanted cherry tomatoes?
It was the one that, Jermaine?
That's what I thought. Brenda, it might be Jermaine.
So let's see.
Right over.
Allison still has it,
Yeah,
and that's it.
really? I'm the only one?
The only one.
I'm just reading them.
That's what I would do. Use your time.
Wait, who was it? By himself.
Oh my gosh. So cute. I'm on the edge of falling.
Wait, what was the current conflict?
We were over yet?
I think we learned about that. Oh my god, I forgot to take the video. Holy cow. Sorry, whoever had to watch this video. Nothing happened for the last 15 minutes.